It allows you to do what you dreamed of your whole working life, to say, I want to go relax and enjoy the sun and the surf and not have to do the rest of the time in my yard or on my building.
Today, I'm joined by Mike Kent. Mike Kent is the owner of Progressive Management, and he and his wife, Gail, have been doing it for over 40 years. And I can't wait for him to give us his input on the condo market and what's going on in Florida. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you. We have, in fact, been here for over 40 years, and it's a wonderful market. I moved from the Midwest with unions and industrial negativity and people that didn't enjoy themselves, and walked away from it in 1980 and have never looked back. We've also been selling condominiums since 1980, so we've watched the development of that business grow and change and have markets go up and down. But the changes the last few years have been more dramatic. It got, I think some of the reason it got more dramatic, and the legislation was required to bring people back to reality, that at times they owned a condominium but thought it was different from what they used to own at home, wherever home was, and forgot that maintenance and replacements and upgrades are just as important, if not more, than they are with your own home or whatever it was you owned the rest of your life. The SIRS legislation was, I think, to a certain extent, a knee-jerk reaction by the legislators, in that a building collapsed. Condominiums were a major sales force in the state of Florida, unlike most other states. Literally millions of people chose to come to Florida to live in a condominium where others did the work, and you could enjoy life here and as you got older, or as a rental model to use it to rent. That changed dramatically with the legislation.
So with SIRS, then we're going to move to the Milestone. Milestone's different, whereas that's mainly on buildings, or is it on buildings 30 years or older?
Yes.
Approximately?
Yes. Required inspections of all of the elements. It's visual, phase one.
Okay.
If they find cracks and things that they don't really know the extent, then it becomes a phase two that you have to do, that's deeper and more expensive, but it will catch some things that may otherwise be hidden.
And so let's give an example, if you don't mind talking about one of the buildings that I'm familiar with is Shoreline Towers. And that one did have the Milestone and had to go in and do lots of repairs and had assessments done. With those assessments and repairs, that building's good to go now. So you would think that it would be a hot commodity and not something people are scared of.
That's what it should be, yes. If people look to say it's a discriminatory thing, that you should stay away from the ones that haven't done it all. Everybody was to have the reports all done by December 31st, but I read not long ago that about 40% of the South Florida market hasn't completed it yet. Some because of a shortage of engineers, and some because they just are kicking it down the road. But Shoreline Towers was an example of a 200-unit property built in the 70s that was neglected by primarily rental owners who said, let's not spend the money now, let's wait. And in 2021 and 22, they determined that the extent of the damage was between $30 and $35 million. To replace all the windows and doors, the balconies had cracks, they were substandard construction, they hadn't been repaired as they should. And it cost every owner about $135,000. But now that work is all done, and now it's a pristine property that should have the same impact for people to buy that some of the others did.
For those that haven't had their milestone inspection yet, there are buildings that are 5 years away or 3 years away from having their milestone. And people are worried that when that milestone comes up, they're going to get these huge assessments. So they're scared of those as well. What's your advice and questions they should be asking before they buy in those?
I think overall, the legislation will have a positive impact on all of the buildings. I think a lot of people who thought it would be a legitimate thing to push the expenses down the road are now deciding that's not a good thing. And rather than create havoc when your time comes, start to build it now like you should have done all along. And I think many are doing that because it's not, the average buyer is not looking at age anymore. They're looking at the whole industry to say they're all the same. You either have a crisis today or you will have. And to avoid that, let's do the right thing earlier. We're seeing that with many of the properties that we manage. I think that there's actually a list of responsible documents that's been published, and I hope everybody who's in the real estate business will do that. Have that list available. All of us who manage community associations know it. We have it available. We post it on a public portion of our software that doubles as a website so that you can go online, get all the condominium documents, the budgets, the assessments if there are anything that's relevant is all available for the public to see in a part of the site that's not private, that's for owners only.
That's awesome. That's a great resource for anybody looking to buy a condo on the coast.
Yes, ask for it early. It's pmainfo.com, and if they just call our office or email or text our receptionist, she can get you to all that and help people. It's what she's there to do. It's not, some people try to hide the reality of some of the things, but if you give it all to them and you give it to them in a positive spin, they know what it is, they can get it, they become comfortable. Then when they get to closing their condominium, they know when they close that they've had the benefit of everything they need to know and make the purchase be a positive experience. We've owned condominiums in Florida for years. We still do, and it's still a wonderful market, and it's still an affordable investment that is normally less than buying a home or something else, particularly near the beach. And to have the luxury of having others do your work for you on all the common areas, the concept was right. I think it just got sloppily enforced for a while, and not that people did it intentionally knowing the buildings were going to collapse, but they just didn't know any better. They thought it was different from owning a house in Ohio or Michigan or Tennessee or wherever, and it's the same real estate doing the same things. But still, it's still the nicest place in the world to live, and we hope it can stay that way.
So basically, to recap that, it's like you have to keep up a condo just like you would your house.
We thought it was different, and it's not. We maintain everything that we manage just as though we owned it, and the costs are the same. You just split it among all the people, but you still have to do it, and it still needs to remain nice. And the owners then, coincidentally, when they see that all the exteriors are being redone, they'll be more cautious and aware of doing their interior, keeping the interiors up to date instead of letting them get old and dated and all of that. It was a lesson for all of us, and everybody, I think, is taking it responsibly, and we'll hopefully keep it like that. You'll see some price adjustments. You may see some prices that drop some, but what we're seeing is once the repair work is done, the pricing goes at or above the cost of the repairs. So it's not like it's not recoverable. I don't know as we'll see the massive increases in price we've seen when everybody was scrambling around, starting with COVID, and after that to come to the places in the world that are the most beautiful and buy whatever you can buy and not pay attention. That was an erratic market that I think will levelize and already is, but it's not like you're going to see a collapse of pricing. It's not, the banks have been responsible, the brokerage community has been responsible of not ratcheting prices beyond where they should be. So I think it will be adjustments like any other investment, but going into the future, it will be a good thing still to own and be proud of. I think what you'll see is those that bought purely for the rental model will change. I think condominiums were built initially for people to live in, most seasonally, and in order to alleviate some of the costs you rented when you weren't here. All of a sudden, in most of the rest of the state, it stayed like that, but here it became, for many, an actual rental model. That, I think, is going to change. I think you're seeing the rent model to where in the last 2 or 3 years, 50 new hotels have been built in this region. That's impacting condominium rentals. Community associations that sometimes are saying, I don't know if we want this to be a huge rental community like a big hotel. We like the guests, we like the renters, but we still want it to be a place where we live. And I think that's all changing here, but not in a bad way. We'll see some adjustments, but it'll work its way out to where it'll have a place.
Have you seen insurance costs affect homeowner dues in condos?
In a major way. Insurance over the past 5 years in many cases has tripled. And when the state started to say, we're going to regulate it, we're going to limit that, the insurance companies are in it to minimize risk and make a profit. And so they began to say, all right, well, everything that looks like it's high risk, like roofs, we will exempt and not cover those if you haven't done what you're supposed to and have roofs that are redone every 10 years, or at least have an engineering report that says they're not done.
And that's even on condos?
Even on condos.
Wow.
Yes. But the last 6 or 8 months, we're beginning to see a little bit of leveling. In fact, this year, some of the bids we're seeing now are 5 or 10% under what they were, and a few more new carriers in insurance in Florida. So it was SIRS and insurance together that made a drastic impact on people, coupled with the fact that it wasn't always regulated the way it should be, that you have to have insurance appraisals every few years. So people got way behind. We had one condominium that the value of the property went up 50%, and you had premium increases. So it was a double whammy that we hope has been now caught up and regulated. So we hope it's levelizing. It can become more sensible. I think that the association boards and their management companies have all decided now we have to be more responsible, or we're not going to have anything to sell to people that make any sense.
And we're still beautiful. It's the most beautiful place.
That hasn't changed a bit, and I hope it stays like that, and we can get back to having people come here and enjoy it and not be pressured to say, can I afford it anymore?
Right. Well, Mike, thanks so much for being with us. And if you need anything on homeowners, Progressive Management is your place.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We've worked together for a long time, and I have loved it.
Let's keep doing it.
That's right.
Yes.
Thanks.